What's going on, guys? It's Aiden with Upper James Toyota, and today I put together a little compilation of our favorite hybrid SUVs. If you guys did like this video, please don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you don't miss any more of our future Toyota related content, and I'll check you guys out in the next video. A new year means a new design. Next to me, I've got a 2025 4Runner TRD Off-Road Premium, and this is gonna turn some heads in the 2025 new car market. My name's Aiden with Upper James Toyota, and today we're gonna be going over what's different and what's similar from the new body style versus the old body style for the 4Runner. So stay tuned and let's check out this car. If you guys are in the market for a new or used vehicle, do not forget to click the link in the top of our description. Now let's talk redesign on the 25 4Runner. I think this is gonna be my favorite looking 4Runner to date that Toyota has released, but it's gonna come with quite a few changes. And arguably the biggest controversial topic is going to be powertrain. We have seen a huge change from the manufacturer in the last 5 or so years. With the Tundra, with the Tacoma, with the Sequoia, I could go on and on about vehicles in our lineup, and the 4Runner is gonna be one of the top ones to chat about as well. So out goes that naturally aspirated 4-liter V6 paired up with a 5-speed automatic gearbox, and in comes a 2.4 turbo 4-cylinder, making about 278 horsepower, 317 pound-feet of torque, going through an 8-speed automatic gearbox. That is gonna be the biggest talking point on the new 4Runner to see longevity of what these engines will do over time, because if you knew anything about the prior generation or generations of 4Runner, you knew that vehicle was pretty bulletproof. Now, talking about design, and that's gonna be one of the biggest things in this video I'm gonna be touching on, is that I really wished when they, released this new vehicle, I assumed the inside would look like a Tacoma, and it's pretty true. It is pretty Tacoma-like, even Tundra-like. There are similarities between quite a few models in our lineup currently. But the biggest thing was gonna be outside. I really hope that they kept that kind of retro style 4Runner, but obviously made it and updated some of the appearances on this vehicle, which I think Toyota's done a pretty good job at doing so. Now, featuring this TRD Off-Road Premium, this is one of our newer colors on today's market, which is underground. It's a dark gray, so out goes that magnetic gray metallic, in comes underground. I think it's a pretty cool color to offer on one of these vehicles, and I think it suits, the looks and capabilities of a 4Runner pretty well. Now, looking at the front end of this vehicle, a couple things, and if you've seen any one of my previous videos, you will know I'm not a fan of this active front spoiler. I think that it's a big eyesore. I would be taking off of my personal vehicle, and it definitely limits, obviously, front capabilities, bringing this car into a parking spot, because obviously that's not a whole lot of ground clearance versus actually where your bumper would finish on the front end of this vehicle. So that's up to you. Toyota obviously rates that this is going to improve aerodynamics and fuel efficiency when you're driving one of these. So if you have one, if you're waiting for one, let me know if you guys would be leaving that on or taking that off, because it's simply just about 4 bolts you'd have to unscrew and the full thing will come off for you. Now, looking at the front end design, I think they've done a pretty good job. I like the fact they're integrating, new headlights, new fog lights, and I like the fact they've kind of kept this similar to the Tacoma in the sense that your fog lights now are more centered into the middle of your bumper, and they're going to be running parallel with the road ahead of you. Obviously, having that vertical LED, like I've mentioned on an XSE version of a RAV4, for example, I like the look of that. It looks pretty sporty, but it's also not as practical, because obviously 2 vertical lights versus 2 horizontally mounted lights, you're gonna have more, visibility out of the horizontal lights than the other design. So I'm liking the fact that Toyota has gone that route to style the front end of this 4Runner. Now, talking about the 4Runner, this is offered on a gas model, which is here in front of me, in 2 different configurations, a 7-passenger or a 5-passenger. So this is your fully loaded version of a 5-passenger, and a limited would be a fully loaded version of the 7-passenger. And whenever I get one of those, I do know we have a couple interesting versions of the new 4Runner arriving shortly. I'll be doing a TRD Pro version of this video, probably come late May, early June. So definitely stay tuned to check that one out, because I'm interested to see what that looks like versus just the gas model of this vehicle, which is here in front of me today. Now, taking a closer peek, I'm happy to say a couple things that they've kind of kept kept the same on this vehicle and they've integrated nothing crazy new. I always say, you don't have to fix it if it's not broken. This old generation of the 4Runner definitely was not broken. They had a few things, or actually quite a few things they had to update, but I like the fact they're not doing anything crazy, especially when it comes to wheels. Now, you're still getting nice 18-inch TRD off-road alloy wheels on this package, and I like that. A beefier tire looks good on this package because I've mentioned this before, and you'll see a video up on the channel about a Land Cruiser that I talked about, simply doing the fact that I like that you have a vehicle that is so practical, yet you could also take this off-road and not have to change a whole lot on the vehicle. I've had, some customers have Jeeps in the past or different manufacturers, and they always change around stuff. They throw new tires on, new rims on, bigger tires, off-road looking tires. You kind of get all of that directly from the factory, which I like in Toyota's sense. Now, talking about things you get from the factory, you'll be getting these, which are running boards. And I like the fact Toyota's offering that free of charge, at least in the Canadian market, in case you want running boards to get in and out, because yes, this definitely sits up a little bit higher amongst our entire lineup of SUVs. If you have seen any one of my previous videos, I'm gonna touch on this again, and I'm sad that Toyota has not changed this yet. And I know this is not the hybrid version. I'm gonna look at what the hybrid version has to offer when it is here, but I wish they just simply glossed this out. It's something so small, but I think consumers would want that. I don't know if people like this matte black look. I think, if it gets scuffed, it's a bit harder to clean than other materials that it could be on the outside. So you guys can let me know what your thoughts are on that. I'm gonna take a closer peek at the trunk, so give me 2 seconds and I'll be right back. Now, taking a closer peek onto the rear end of this new 4Runner, it's gonna be my favorite side of this vehicle to look at. I think what they've done to style these rear retro style taillights, they have done a pretty good job and blown this one out of the park. Now, obviously, that's just my own opinion. I think looking at this vehicle next to an old generation one, which one of my colleagues does drive, I like the design of this rear end a lot better than the outgoing model. I think the front end kind of looks like a Tacoma, maybe even like a Sequoia, but the baby version of that vehicle. I think that the rear end of the 4Runner definitely makes this stand alone as a pretty interesting rear end that we don't offer amongst our entire lineup. Now, I do like a few things that they have added onto the back end of this vehicle. Number one, they are tow ready to go. So directly from the factory, you will get your ball mount, so you could tow whatever you would like on this vehicle. And I think, having a larger vehicle and a vehicle that you could tow something on, I like the fact that you don't have to pay anything extra for that from a manufacturer like Toyota. I also love the fact that written in big letters says 4Runner on the back here, just letting everyone know you are in that new design for the 25 4Runner. And lastly, everyone's favorite feature from the outgoing model on the 4Runner, on the Tundra, on a few other vehicles in our lineup, I love the fact that your rear glass can also slide down or up. And I always love the fact I've been driving on the road before and seeing one of these loaded with a few dogs and their heads are out the back, enjoying a fun little drive with their family. I always love seeing that, and it's something pretty cool. If I was a dog, I'd love to have that option on one of these. Now, opening up the rear end of the 4Runner, space is still obviously a #1 thing on this vehicle. I love the fact that you could load this up with a lot of things. Now, this being a 5-passenger, obviously this is gonna be the most spacious one you will get between this and a 7-passenger. So if I'm gonna configure a 4Runner, I don't need the 7 seats. I would go 5 seats all day long. Yes, I know there are a few things that the Limited gets you that the TRD Off-Road Premium doesn't get you, but those are very minimal in my opinion. And I think judging off what's in front of me today, I would be saving that extra, cash I'd be throwing to get into a Limited and just staying with this package here in front of me. I think that having these seats that fold all the way down, a very deep trunk, this kind of looks almost like Land Cruiser trunk size. So I like the fact that there's no sloped back. I like the fact that there's actually more space above here and that, the roof lines of this vehicle don't limit any space on the inside. So I'm happy to say that, judging off of just cargo space, the accessibility to having all the seats folding down, your cup holders in the back, if you are in that 7-passenger, I'm interested to seeing how this is the first one that we have here today that, having that second row into the third, or into the trunk of your vehicle is gonna definitely limit your trunk space. So stay tuned, because I'm definitely gonna throw another video out on a 7-passenger just to see exactly the direct comparison between this 5 and a 7. Let's talk inside of the new 4Runner. I'm gonna be starting with something that can change between all 4 of these gas models. And it's going to be this trim or, plastic insert that they offer on the front end of this vehicle. Now, this is gonna be something that is gonna be featured in today's current setup as smoke silver. And it's the only option you can get on this version or trim level of the 4Runner. If you moved to a TRD Sport, you could get smoke silver or anodized blue. Now, I have seen that vehicle in person. It is probably the weirdest color combination Toyota could ever do. And it's funny how they wouldn't offer like a red, which is more suitable to our actual brand, which is, white and red. I think that would make more sense, but it is so strange. And if I ever get one in, I need to do something to show you guys what this blue looks like, because it looks like the Tacoma blue. And it's funny how something so small like that is, something that you could customize in your new vehicle. And having the blue, take it from my experience, it is a big eyesore. Some people may love it. I just think it looks really weird because a TRD Sport is only offered with these very, very interesting different, woven fabric into this like cloth seat that they offer, which is a silver and like a black combination mixed up with this blue. It's definitely not how I would spec my 4Runner. You could obviously get it with this smoke silver. That would be my preferred. But out of all 4 trim levels, I think this would hands down be my #1 pick. Color customization on outside and on the inside. Now, talking inside, this is where things, I kind of feel like I'm a bit underwhelmed, I guess, on the inside of this vehicle. Because when I look out, sure, I definitely don't feel like I'm in a Tacoma, but everything, that's inside this vehicle, and if I blacked out all of these windows and the sunroof and the front dash, I would think I'm in a Tacoma. And that's the only thing I'm just kind of not really jumping for joy on. Maybe just because I work for Toyota and obviously I see these vehicles every single day. That's the reason why I'm gonna push that way. However, if someone was really looking at a new design 4Runner who hasn't been in a new Tacoma, for example, they would think this is a massive upgrade. And don't get me wrong, it is a huge upgrade, but I just feel like amongst our entire lineup, it's just kind of the same thing as a Tacoma. I've had a lot of customers wanting to come in to drive this, to see it in person, see what the space looks like, see what the new design looks like, how the new engine feels when you're driving it, so on and so forth. But just sitting in it, I really don't know how excited I can be about the inside of this vehicle just because it feels like a Tacoma. Everything about sitting here, having this arm handle here, the way this is laid out, the new screens, they've done, yes, a great job at it, but you blindfold yourself getting into this and a Tacoma, take all the windows away, you probably cannot tell which one's the 4Runner and which one's the Tacoma. So interesting what Toyota has done there. I get it, you're using the same parts and whatnot, so it's better on the production side to actually get these, produced and out to customers who are waiting, which I know there are quite a few of you. However, it's just an interesting design and an interesting route Toyota's decided to go on that vehicle. Now, specifically talking about this trim level of the 4Runner, I think #1, I like the fact these are not genuine leather seats. These are soft tech seats. So the 4 trim levels on this vehicle, SR5 and a TRD Sport, are the only 2 that come with cloth. Then the TRD Premium, which is here in front of me, this one's gonna be coming with soft tex or leather seats. Then you have the genuine leather on the limited side. And like I've mentioned in a previous video before, I like the fact having soft tech seats because they don't cost as much to repair. And obviously, looking at them and feeling them, it pretty much feels like leather. I can't really tell a huge difference. They might be a little bit harder than actual genuine leather, but for me, that's not a reason to upgrade to the limited model, in my opinion. I love the fact that, out of the fact that this does look like the Tacoma, I like the fact that, this vehicle needed a redesign bad. They needed to redesign safety sense features, design features. They needed a new interior option to actually give customers more bang for your buck on what you're spending, because most people obviously are on the inside of their vehicle way more than just staring at it in your driveway. So having those features like your massive 14-inch touch display, your JBL sound system with obviously something that's shared in the Tacoma, which is your pop-up JBL sound speaker, I think is pretty cool, which again is waterproof up to 4 feet. If you feel that adventurous to chuck it, into some water, you can do that according to Toyota. Other than that though, there's really not a whole lot that I'm really jumping for joy on the inside of this. And I know that might maybe turn some heads and I might get some, kickback for saying that. But honestly, jump into Tacoma, jump into this, they are very similar. However, I think what you're getting on this front of things on the 4Runner side, say versus a Land Cruiser, which is only offered as a hybrid, or you look at a Tacoma, for example, I like you're getting way more space in one of these and more value for the dollar that you're spending versus those two vehicles. However, if you guys are in the market for one, I want to know what you guys think on it. I don't know, which way I would go. I think, out of our lineup, there are quite a few vehicles I would love to be driving and having, parked in my garage, this being one of them. However, I would be honestly taking a few other cars before I take a new 4Runner. Now, jumping into the second row of your new redesigned 4Runner, I mentioned in the trunk that I like the fact that your headliner kind of had that, opening space above the actual trunk and your cargo capacity. I like that. I don't like how the fact that this roof is sloped down, and you can really notice it sitting in the second row of this vehicle, which I'm not going to be a big fan of. It definitely doesn't feel as spacious as this vehicle looks from the outside. And I left my seat exactly where I was driving it. Sure, it probably could be a little bit further, pushed forward. However, sure, I'm sitting comfortable, but I don't know if I'd be that comfortable for a pretty long drive in one of these. So that's just my opinion. Now, I like the fact that they still have a few convenience features on the back end of this 4Runner. I love the fact, I don't know if you can see this, that the cup holder is actually situated right here, which is a new design for any of our cup holders to be up here next to basically where you would open or close your rear windows back here. I like the fact that it's not down here. You do have a storage compartment down there. However, that's more accessible rather than reaching all the way down for your drink. Obviously, you do have two cup holders in the center here and even more into the third row if you had a 7-passenger configured 4Runner. But I like the fact that's pretty easy to grab. I also think it's interesting, Toyota typically would do 2 horizontal mounted USB-C charging ports for any of your rear passengers back here. They're actually stacked vertical next to your 120 volt outlet back here. So kind of interesting, you have all of this, space here, which I'm assuming is going to be for climate control on another trim level that you could get for this vehicle. I just haven't seen it yet, so I can't comment on that. I've seen pictures online, of course, but I obviously want to see one in person to obviously give you my honest opinion about that. The only other thing I'm complaining about on the rear end of this vehicle is that there's no moonroof on this 4Runner, and I wish they put that on. I think that's something so simple that would just open up this vehicle even more. Good, it has a sunroof. I would expect it at this price point. However, it's funny how on one of our spec sheets, Toyota actually says, it has a little plus and it says moonroof, but it's funny, that's not a moonroof. That's just your simple, regular sunroof that's in, all of our RAV4. So interesting what Toyota has decided to do on that front, but I'm really interested to actually see what most consumers think about this new vehicle. If you guys, had an old generation 4Runner, if you were waiting for this new redesign, if you're waiting, a year till they started production on this, to kind of wait until there's any, kinks that they had to kind of, get out of this vehicle as they're still producing it, let me know, because I can tell you, at least from my personal opinion, working for Toyota, I need to be very honest about what I'm telling the consumer. And I will tell you guys very honestly, like I've told other one of my customers, that I'm really underwhelmed in this new 4Runner. I think, sure, it looks great, but it's basically like a more spacious Tacoma to me, which is just a really interesting decision that Toyota's done to remodel a vehicle, especially at this price point and at this caliber of one of our vehicles. This being one of our most sought after bulletproof vehicles that could go through anything. Interesting what Toyota's done, and let me know what you guys think down below. Now, this being a larger vehicle, obviously fuel consumption is going to be a pretty big talking point on this 4Runner. Now, the old generation with that 4-liter naturally aspirated V6, those bad boys were heavy on fuel. They averaged a combined 13.8 liters per 100 kilometers, which isn't that great in today's market. Then you think, oh no, Toyota's gonna change that on the redesign. They're gonna throw in a smaller engine, which makes more power, a better transmission, you get more gears in the outgoing model. Fuel efficiency will be so much better. And it has improved, but nothing drastically. One of these new 4Runners on the gas model side averages 11.1 liters per 100 combined between city and highway driving, which I was pretty shocked at. I expected that number to be much, much lower. And maybe nothing crazy like the hybrid side of things, but at least into the mid to high 9 liters per 100, I was going to assume. So it still is gonna be a bit heavier on gas, and I'm interested to see what future future clients will tell me they're averaging on one of these new 4Runners. Now, fuel taking that into consideration, we need to talk about price. This not being a fully loaded version, it's gonna come in as the third highest trim level on this new gas model 4Runner, but it's going to be the fully loaded version of the 5-passenger. One of these bad boys being a TRD Off-Road Premium comes in MSRP for the 25 model year, $63,702. Adding obviously freight and PDI, your taxes, licensing, any dealer charges, government charges, and then this bad boy is on the road and yours. So let me know. Obviously, that is a bit of a price jump from the last generation model in 2024 with the old tech, the old engine, and the old body style. So do you guys think that price is justified? Let me know down below in the comments. Again, my name is Aiden with Upper James Toyota. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you did like it, please do not forget to hit like and subscribe so you don't miss any more of our future Toyota related content, and we'll check you guys out in the next video. For the last production year in 1989, fast forward 35 years and Toyota brought back an old gem. This is a 2025 premium package Toyota Land Cruiser, and this is gonna be my ideal spec if I'm ever gonna be buying one of these vehicles. My name's Aiden with Upper James Toyota. We're gonna take a closer peek to exactly see what this package offers you and your family, so stay tuned and let's check it out. If you guys are in the market for a new or used vehicle, do not forget to click the link in the top of our description. Now, when the redesigned Land Cruiser arrived here, I did a video on a first edition 2024 model. Now, that being what then was the fully loaded version, that was going to be a very rare Land Cruiser to have, only limited to 290 units for all of Canada for the 2024 model year. Now, fast forward 1 year ahead of that, this is going to be the highest trim package you can get on the Land Cruiser, and they no longer offer that first edition. Now, obviously, if you were ever, very fortunate enough to get behind the wheel of one of those and you have those in your garage, consider yourself very lucky, judging off of just the number of units that they made. But now for 2025, it's a little bit more accessible to get one of these vehicles. And out of only 3 trim levels they're now offered on the Land Cruiser, this is going to be my favorite, and I think your best bang for the buck you will be spending. Now, powering this bad boy is going to be a 2.4 4-cylinder paired up with a hybrid system. This can be making some pretty serious numbers. 326 horsepower, 465 pound-feet of torque through an 8-speed automatic gearbox. Now, obviously, Toyota offers quite a few SUVs, especially right now during 2025. This being one of 9 that we offer, this is going to be one of our softer riding vehicles, which is actually pretty cool considering how this is basically meant for someone taking this off-road. Now, I'm pretty sure most people getting behind the wheel of one of these will probably never take this, off to a mountain, off to a dirt road, and actually really off-road this like this vehicle is capable of. But it's still pretty cool that you have that option onto, a pretty spacious and a pretty cool looking vehicle for you and your family. Now, talking front end design on the new Land Cruiser, I'm gonna start down here and talk about this interesting front grille. And I like the fact that Toyota has kind of gone away from that traditional Toyota logo and actually have just written Toyota in pretty big letters across the front grille. I think kind of keeping this boxy style on the vehicle for the old design 35 years ago that still had that boxier look, I think is a pretty cool option that Toyota has decided to do and continue with for the redesigned version. Now, that was offered on last generation, either the first edition or the 1958. They still offer it on the 1958 today. However, if you're going to give me the appearance of both, I will take this design with these cool rectangle style headlights over the circular ones. I'm not too sure why I'm not a big fan of it. I just think having this boxier look on the vehicle, I think Toyota's done a pretty cool job to style it and keep that styling the same, throughout the interior and the exterior of this vehicle. This is gonna be my favorite spec that we have offered. This is actually gonna be the first Land Cruiser I have ever seen with the Java interior, which is the brown option. And it's going to be my favorite out of the black or the brown. I think that having that interesting, different interior color option is a pretty cool one. And I like the fact that it's paired up with this exterior color, which which is wind chill pearl. Also, the first time I've ever seen this vehicle shown in white. And I'm really happy that it's shown in white because it's gonna show off my favorite feature on the Land Cruiser, which are going to be these gloss black door handles. Now, I've done a review on this vehicle beforehand, and I've seen other Land Cruisers on the road. I've seen the black ones, I've seen, the underground color, and I think both of those colors, or all the colors, look great on this vehicle. However, having a white one here, I love the fact that you see these small accents on the vehicle pop a little bit more over, the other colors that I have seen, and I've actually only ever seen one white one, which is this one here in front of me today. If you're gonna pair that up with the best rim option, in my opinion, on this vehicle, you're getting 20-inch alloy wheels. And I like the fact these are like a gunmetal and not gloss black. I typically like a gloss black wheel. However, having this kind of like more of a satin or like a matte finish, I think Toyota's done a pretty cool job to, design this outside, inside, and they've done a very good job to keep it, catered to a very, very aesthetically pleasing looking vehicle. And I like the fact on this Land Cruiser, you're getting 20-inch tires versus 18s on another package. I think that this kind of rounds off the wheel well a little bit better, in my opinion. And I think, it just makes the car fit a little bit more evenly than having an 18 on this package. The only couple things I'm not going to be a huge fan of. Number one, if you see my previous videos, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That's going to be this fender flare. I do not like the fact it's this matte black plastic. Getting into a vehicle at this price point, I would expect this to have, gloss black. I would think it would be very cool if they threw in some, matte black carbon or something like that. Obviously, I know for a manufacturer like Toyota, that's a pretty, far reach to go that. And obviously it would increase price drastically. But I still think having a different option on our exterior of some of our vehicles could play into having more customizations for the everyday consumer. Now, the other thing, which I'm just not gonna be a big fan of, oddly enough from Toyota, we offer a few vehicles that come standard with running boards, this being one of them here. However, because of the size of this vehicle, and obviously I'm being a bit taller of a person, I don't need this running board to actually get in and out of this vehicle. I would be way more happy, A, with just no running boards, or B, with a running board style that we offer from Toyota called Predator Side Steps. That has an individual step for a driver and your rear passengers on both the left and right side of your vehicle. And I think having that mixed with, the beefiness and the off-road look of this vehicle would round it off 10 times better. Some clients have asked me, Aiden, do you wish they had, the automated running boards on one of these? I'm also gonna say no. I don't think you need it. And if you need that, you can move to a Tundra, Tacoma Hybrid, a new Sequoia. There are different options that, Toyota offers for something like that. However, in my personal opinion, I would just love it. We take those out, we make those fenders gloss black, and this would have been the absolute dream spec for me. Now, let's talk rear end for the Land Cruiser. Number one, I mentioned the door handles. I love that small little touch Toyota has decided to do, and obviously on a white exterior color, I think it's gonna make the vehicle pop a little bit more. I also love the fact they decided to throw Land Cruiser all in black on the back trunk of this vehicle. I think that is that same little touch throughout the vehicle, which I'm going to be in favor of. The only thing I'm not gonna like, I really wish they blacked out the iForce Max badge. It's just something, a little bit of chrome on the vehicle, which typically is not my favorite. On the white, you don't notice it as much as, say, underground or black. However, that's the one thing I just wish they kept that black theme and they glossed that out to make it, just look a little bit more even on the vehicle. Now, talking about one of my favorite features on a Land Cruiser is going to be this little button over here. You push this in your rear glass, you have a little, I want to say like a finger step to obviously open up your rear glass here. I love having this feature because you don't have to open up your trunk to access it. So if you had boxes or stuff in it, or you had anything in the back of the vehicle that you didn't want to come out, even say that's a dog, for example, you didn't want them to jump out of the vehicle, you can just simply open up this glass, throw stuff in, and it's pretty simple. You just simply close it down like that, and it clips into place. So I love having that little accessible feature on one of these vehicles that obviously make it a little bit easy getting in and out of the vehicle. Now, if you want the full trunk to open, very simple. Hit that button like I just did, and your trunk opens up. Now, this is where things get really interesting. When this vehicle first arrived here, I was showing some clients who had a few on order with me, and they got, to the back of the vehicle thinking, Aiden, there's definitely a third row back here. There's 4 cup holders, there's 2 charging ports, there's storage compartments for both your rear right and rear left passenger. If you could just imagine a bench to be in the back here. You lift up your cargo liner, you lift up your cargo mat, there's no seats back here. There's only 5, which is pretty interesting when you look at this closest competitor on today's market, which would be the Lexus GX. Now, if this vehicle, just got off the truck, you would have this little brown box in the back. It's gonna have your tow ball, which goes over this mount here, because these vehicles do come tow ready from Toyota, at least here in Canada. I'm not too sure about the States. However, interesting enough, you see this little design on this box, and it has a label that says ball mount, but it doesn't say Land Cruiser. It says Lexus GX. So it's funny that, they're kind of throwing, apart from Lexus, and I know Lexus and Toyota basically sister companies, but it's funny that there's actually not a ball mount specifically for the Land Cruiser. It's gonna come directly from a Lexus. And that's the interesting thing about this vehicle, is that it does compete very close to the Lexus GX with, I would say, 3 massive differences. Number 1, Lexus GX only comes as an 8-passenger or a 7-passenger. So if you want that extra space, that GX could be the option for you. Number 2, it comes with a V6 versus a 4-cylinder. So some people in today's market, they say, Aiden, I need a V6. I don't want a 4-cylinder. Sure, it makes great power, but I want to, have that, extra power on the highway when I'm merging, and I don't think I'll have it out of a 4-cylinder. If that's, a customer like you, whether it's a Land Cruiser or just another manufacturer, I would urge everyone, come and drive one. If you get behind the wheel of one of these, sure, it's a 4-cylinder, but they make a lot of power, and you can easily get this vehicle up to speed pretty quickly. Number 3 is going to be the biggest difference between the GX and the Land Cruiser. That's going to be price. One of these, I don't know exactly the direct specifics of these pricing, but I know it's in and around a $22,000 to about $30,000 more than this Land Cruiser in front of me. So obviously that's a pretty big increase. If it's only, 5, 6, 7, 8 grand, in the grand scheme of things, looking at that for a vehicle that comes in an $80,000 price point as MSRP, then yes, that's not a huge increase. But if you're adding, 20, 25, 30 grand, that's where things get pretty interesting. So let me know in the comments. I really want to hear what you guys have to say. If you were looking, at the Land Cruiser, if you thought it's gonna have 8 seats, 7 seats, and then if you did move to Lexus, which is the closest thing to this, or you just change manufacturers entirely. Let me know down below, because I want to be reading, what you guys have kind of gotten yourselves into and your thoughts on that. Now, back to the Land Cruiser. Big thing about this vehicle, trunk space is huge, and I think that's a pretty cool option, and I'm happy, that Toyota has that on this vehicle. I find that some of our vehicles look very spacious from the outside, and then once you get in it and it's actually, you throw in a few extra people, you throw in a couple suitcases, groceries, a Costco run, then space gets very limited. However, having this and the seats that will go all the way down and actually recline up to basically lay parallel with the front 2 seats of this vehicle, they've definitely offered a lot of cargo space for you and your family. Now, I'm gonna jump into this and feature off the new interior color, which is Java. So give me 2 seconds and I'll be right back. All right, guys, let's jump into the inside of this Land Cruiser. Starting off with the color. Now, this being Java interior, it's going to be my favorite color option. I like this way over the black. I think it just, makes the vehicle look a little bit different, and I actually feel like it makes the vehicle feel a little bit bigger because everything's not black on the inside. You can't spec this in any other way with, a different dash color and stuff like that, which you can, do that and customize on a Tacoma or the new 4Runner. I think that having this different color option just makes the vehicle pop a little bit better, in my opinion. Now, this being the Java interior, it's only offered on 2 exterior options. So that's going to be windshield pearl, which is this one here, or black. And I'm going to tell you, I've seen a black on black Land Cruiser. It was nice, but I definitely love the fact that this is the white exterior with this color option. I think Toyota has nailed it. It's not, a light brown. It's definitely a deeper brown, in my opinion, and kind of reminds me of either the Portobello interior or the Redwood interior, which were 2 color options for the interiors of a 4Runner and I believe a Highlander, I'm pretty sure. It's been a while since I've seen one of those interiors in front of me here, but I'm pretty sure that's the two options that it's the closest to. And I like this better than both of them combined. Now, I'm not gonna go over in depth, every last feature on the inside of this vehicle. I'm just gonna basically talk about what makes this the premium package and my favorite or, funny features that they have on the inside. Starting off with a few nice convenience features. Number one, cooled seats, heated seats, two-stage heated steering wheel, which I love. You also have power passenger and driver side seats. Now, this interior option is the only option, A, that's brown, and B, with genuine leather. The other option on this vehicle is just the Land Cruiser, which is number 2 on the 3 levels of your trim grades. Now, that comes with our Soft-Tech seats, and I always tell this to customers, Soft-Tech seats are great. I honestly can't tell a huge difference being on genuine leather versus the Soft-Techs. Maybe it's a little bit softer, maybe it's a little bit more durable, but obviously cost-wise, it's gonna cost you a little bit more to repair a genuine leather seat versus a Soft-Tech seat. So, that's something to definitely consider if you say had younger kids or a dog in here. You obviously don't want to nick these seats because it would cost you a little bit more to repair. Now, I love the fact that this has one of my favorite features, which is pretty standard, but I like the fact that it is on this package, which is your which is your driver memory seat option. You have 2 options for that. I have the 2 buttons down here. So if I was driving this vehicle and I had my partner, for example, driving a vehicle, or my wife one day driving this vehicle, I could obviously set this to be not number 1 or number 2. So I like the fact that you kind of have that customization on the inside of a vehicle, which I know is pretty standard, but at least for Toyotas, most of our vehicles don't come with that option. So I like that. Number 2 is going to be a very cool option that they have specifically to this one. You open up your center console and you're going to be greeted with a very interesting button, and it says Cool Box. So Toyota states you could fit 4 355 milliliter water bottles directly right here. You push this button on and it will actually keep your drinks nice and cool. It could be drinks, it could be, any, snacks having a long road trip. So, I don't know about you guys, but I'm a big fan of, having, say, beef jerky or, any like cheese, stuff like that, like stuff you just want to snack on to keep you full while you're driving. Pretty cool to have that option on one of these vehicles. And, we now offer on a fully loaded Platinum Sienna a fridge on that vehicle, which kind of does the exact same thing. So it's interesting to see they have this just not called a fridge, because obviously this is just going to be your cool box feature, but still pretty cool from Toyota. Now, a couple other things I like the fact Toyota includes on this package. Number 1, I like the fact this has heads-up display. And if you've never driven a vehicle with that before, it basically takes this interesting little mirror system and projects your speed and some cool things that you maybe need to know while you're driving, like direction or, any speed signs, stuff like that. So I like the fact that's displayed on your dash above. Obviously, looking down below to your fully digital tachometer, it's not a big difference to kind of move your eyes that way, but I like the fact, convenience-wise, that it's there for you. If you use it, great. If not, no problem also. Another feature which I love on any one of our vehicles is going to be this digital rear view display mirror. Now, this is going to be an option which you can get on most of our vehicles. And I like the fact that there's a camera mounted on the back glass of this vehicle, that little, lip that I was opening up before I actually got onto the inside, and that has a camera mounted there. So in case I was having this vehicle filled, with boxes, it was packed with people, I like the fact that I could flip this back and it would then display a camera of what is behind me. So it's pretty interesting to actually use. If you've ever driven one of our vehicles or your vehicle has it, let me know, because the only thing I ever notice while I'm driving it, A, I notice it's very clear, but B, it's just weird because typically I look through a mirror, right? So you're kind of used to having that like depth perception of looking at anything in this rear view display, but then you obviously throw a camera on there, and it's interesting because you can't really tell depth on the camera. So that definitely takes a little bit of time to get adjusted to. So let me know, if you guys like that or you don't like that, or if you have that feature and you never decide to use it, that's okay too. Now, I mentioned on the outside of this vehicle, this being kind of that boxier look, I like the fact they kind of kept those rectangles on the inside, which they've done. These cool climate control vents, I like the fact that everything's kind of boxed off. And I think that keeping that theme on the outside and then onto the inside, it's the small touch that Toyota has done, which kind of makes this vehicle stand out in our lineup. Now, a few things that I love on this vehicle. Number 1, sound system. 14 speaker JBL sound system is standard on this package, and that is our best sound system that we offer. The only couple things I'm not going to be a huge fan of Number one, and maybe I'm just not used to it yet because only a few of our vehicles have this safety feature, it's going to be this little screen located behind your steering wheel here, which then again kind of shows you those same little rectangles, that all of these little boxes kind of show the same design as your front grille of this vehicle. However, just behind that, behind your paddle shifters, you have this little screen. It's probably 3 inches long and it's pretty narrow. Now, it's called your driver monitor camera. Very interesting what Toyota has decided to do with this. Basically what it'll do is if you're driving and you're for some reason looking to the right, or you're at a red light and you're looking at your passenger, or you're staring at something outside the window, the car will actually alert you and tell you to keep your eyes focused on the road. And the only annoying thing about this is that the reaction time that it will tell you, it's very short. So it's not like you could be looking to the side for 45 seconds and then it'll turn on. It's more like it'll turn on after 8, 9, 10 seconds. Now, you can turn that off. I personally would turn that off because A, I don't need the car telling me how to drive the vehicle. I feel pretty confident behind the wheel, but it's just something that I just find a nuisance on this vehicle. If you have it, let me know, because that's the one thing I'm not going to be a huge fan of. Now, the other few things that I, will opt in for the inside of this vehicle, I love the fact that this being, a family-oriented vehicle with the capabilities of taking this off-road, which I love having that 2-for-1. It's interesting that you have a lot of different drive modes down here. So you have, your ability to put this into mud, sand, off-road. You can go your 4-wheel drive, your all-wheel drive, or your, 2-wheel drive. You can customize it, according to what you want to do on the road. And I think that's pretty cool to have in a vehicle like this. I think that this vehicle on today's market gives customers, that option of, oh, I would love a pickup truck because I want to take it off-roading, or I want to do this with it, and it would be fun to take it here. Well, you kind of have the best of both worlds, having one of these vehicles, having, the capabilities of your everyday driving plus the off-road side. So I think it's a pretty cool vehicle that they decided to bring back for 2024 and now continued it into 2025. The only one thing I'm going to touch on before getting out of the inside is going to be directly above me. I wish they threw a moonroof on this vehicle. I think that would make it so much better. It would make it, so much more open. I don't mind the fact it's a sunroof. I just, there's a few things I wish they improved. I don't think you need this manual little retractor for your sunshade. Obviously, it's a sunny day out today, so having this closed benefits me. However, getting into a vehicle at this price point, I would expect this to be automated, and I'd also expect it to come with a moonroof. That's just me. In today's market, that's pretty standard for most vehicles. There's cars that come in at a way lower price point than this does that have a moonroof, and I just wish they included that. So that's the only big thing I'm gonna say I would change. The other thing, driving one of these, that is the only interesting thing that I notice a lot getting behind the wheel of one of these. These have some of the strangest side mirrors for anyone driving this vehicle. They're more vertical than they are wide. It's weird that the actual mirror, when you're looking at it, when you're driving this vehicle, the mirror seems so small, but the casing around it seems twice the size. So interesting to kind of see what they've done there. Love the fact that they can power fold in or out simply with a push of a button. So you can hit that button, it'll retract the mirrors in any tight parking spots. And I also love just the visual reminder that your vehicle is locked just by looking at this car. However, just the style of it is a little bit interesting. Again, I like the boxiness that they kind of kept that from the outside and they've kind of moved it to the inside, but it's just the one thing I'm not gonna be the biggest fan of. You guys let me know down below. So to wrap some final numbers up on a Land Cruiser, we're gonna start with fuel economy. Now, this being a hybrid, you would be expecting this to average some pretty good fuel efficiency. However, this is going to be averaging 10.1 liters per 100 combined between your highway and city driving. Now, I've got a few customers behind the wheel of one of these Land Cruisers currently. They're averaging in the low to mid 9s, with one actually averaging in the high 8 liters per 100. It is possible depending on the type of driving you are doing. Now, typically with our hybrid system, you benefit from that, typically going under about 35 kilometers an hour, which I know most people aren't doing on the everyday driving. However, if you're in the city, that's definitely more achievable for your driving habits. So you definitely could increase your fuel efficiency versus what Toyota is rating this as, directly from the manufacturer. Now, talking about fuel, that's where things get a little bit interesting. This is going to be one of our very few vehicles in our lineup currently that you need to be putting in premium fuel. So that's definitely a cost to consider before getting behind the wheel of one of these Land Cruisers. And then we talk price. One of these bad boys, being a premium package for the 25 model year, comes in at $84,257. That's MSRP for this model year. Obviously, you add in freight and PDI, subtotal of taxes, licensing, dealer charges, government fees, so that will add up a little bit on top of that 84 number I just mentioned. However, this being on the market and obviously competing very close to the Lexus GX, it's not too bad when you look at, pricing for one of these versus pricing on one of those. Now, if you're behind the wheel of one of these, you want to get behind the wheel of one of these, leave a comment down below. I want to hear what you guys have to say. And if you guys love the new design, hate the new design, which way you'd go between Lexus, GX, if you're thinking of sticking with Toyota and the Land Cruiser, if you're changing manufacturers entirely, let me know, because I want to get some more comments going so I can answer some of these questions and comments you guys have to say in any future videos we will be releasing. If you guys did enjoy this one, please do not forget to hit like and subscribe so you don't miss any more of our future Toyota related content. Thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned for the next one, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Could this be the coolest Tacoma on today's current market? I'm going to take a close in-depth review to see exactly what this 2025 TRD Pro Tacoma has to offer. My name's Aiden with Upper James Toyota, and let's get into this truck. If you guys are in the market for a new or used vehicle, do not forget to click the link in the top of our description. Now, let's talk TRD Pro. Now, nothing is really new. This used to be a trim level offered on the prior generation Tacoma. However, a few big differences onto the new design. It's a new powertrain and it's a new body style, outside and in. They have made some exceptional changes onto this Tacoma. So bye-bye to the 3.5 liter V6 naturally aspirated on that prior generation Tacoma, which really didn't make any significant numbers if you asked me. But in comes this new 2.4 liter four-cylinder paired up with a turbo and our iForce Max hybrid system, which would be making about 326 horsepower paired up with 465 pound-feet of torque going through an 8-speed automatic gearbox, which are some pretty serious numbers from a little four-cylinder. Now, talking front-end styling, I love the fact that Toyota has kind of stuck with their roots and they have kept in some things that they added into the prior generation Tacoma. One of those being your front and rear turn signal. So your front turn signals and your rear turn signals will both be sequential. And I love the look of that it kind of starts on one end and moves into the middle. I've always thought about that on those older Mustangs. Growing up as a kid, I'd always see those, and seeing those turn signals start on one end and move towards the end of that bumper, I thought was pretty cool. And I love the fact that that is now on this vehicle in front of me today. I also love the fact that Toyota has decided to take exactly what came from the Tundra, which was this LED light bar. So underneath your massive Toyota, that's written across your front bumper here, I love the fact that this light bar, it's only exclusive to one of these vehicles, just like the Tundra was, but I love that. I love the fact that you can kind of have this, really, standalone feature on this vehicle. Now, obviously, I do know you can have that on the Trail Hunter, but I've only ever seen one of those ever in my life. We've never had a new one arrive at our dealership yet. And if we ever do get one, I want to show that off, because obviously that looks pretty different versus this very off-road beefy style TRD Pro that is here today. I also love the fact that Toyota has integrated these rigid fog lamps that are going to sit parallel to the actual road ahead of you. And I like that because it's going to give you more visibility off the front end versus, say, a fog light, situated more to the corners of the bumpers or that are typically round from Toyota. So I love the fact that, they've kind of changed around that different design to obviously give more practicality and use out of, the front lighting of a vehicle, which is definitely important. Now, touching upon a couple things that I really do love on this vehicle. You see TRD Pro written a lot on the outside. It's written here on the actual corners of your headlights here. It's written up here. It's written on the inside, on the back. I will touch over a few of those spots, but I think it's pretty cool that there's all these little, little snippets of just TRD Pro throughout this vehicle, because obviously getting into one of these, it is a pretty exclusive truck. Now, talking about this truck, I actually love it in white, and I love it in white even more because I love the fact that they have gone with gloss black fender flares. Same with your front bumper. There's not a whole lot of matte black plastic you will see anywhere on this truck. And I love, love, love the decision Toyota has made to integrate this split roof. So I love the fact it's white with the black roof, and obviously that's shared amongst, you know, a Corolla hatchback, a specific RAV4, Crown Signias, depending on how you're speccing your vehicle. I love the fact that, you know, something like that typically is not on one of our pickup trucks. And I think that having that black roof with your black mirror caps, you know, your fender flares, your, you know, hood scoop on your front hood, I love that the vehicle just looks way more well-rounded, and it's not just one little bit here and one little bit there. They've done a pretty good job to really, you know, make this vehicle aesthetically look very pleasing. You guys can let me know down below in the comments what you think. Now, before we get to the rear end of this Tacoma, I'm going to talk about tires and shocks, because obviously the Tacoma Hybrid being offered in two different off-road styles. You can go TRD Pro or you can go Trail Hunter. A couple big differences between those two packages. Number one, shocks on this bad boy are going to be Bilsteins. Now, that's a pretty good shock, and that was what was on the prior generation TRD Pro also. However, moving up to that Trail Hunter grade, you'll be getting Old Man Emu shocks. Now, I've never driven a Trail Hunter, nor have I seen that vehicle. So when I do get one, I will definitely do a review on it just to see exactly how this one drives versus that one, because obviously they're going to be pretty similar in the sense that both those are very off-road capable, and that's typically what people would probably do getting one of these trucks. However, I love just the look of this actual tire. I love the 18-inch, very off-road looking tire. You can see with the grooves on this bad boy that this could take on some different terrain. So I love the fact that Toyota, you know, shows a very off-road appearance, but they're also giving a lot of capabilities directly from the manufacturers. You're not having to upgrade tires and shocks and all of these interesting things, you know, far and through. I really think that they have done a cool job to include that, and, you know, something you're not paying anything extra for. Now, wrapping back to the rear end of this vehicle and talking about the rear tailgate of one of these new TRD Pro Tacomas. I love the fact that, you know, this gloss black theme has really intertwined, and they've done a really good job to show that throughout the entire vehicle. I also love the fact that Toyota has now integrated a very easy and accessible way to get into, you know, the bed of your truck by simply pushing this little button situated on your rear brake light. Obviously, your tailgate has now come down. And I also like the fact that, you know, we offer that on other vehicles too, just like the Tundra. But obviously, being in the car business and seeing other manufacturers, I love the fact that having something like that, yes, it's mechanical, but I love the fact that theoretically I could just come over here and sit and it still feels very, very sturdy. So you don't have to, you know, worry about only putting, you know, light things on your tailgate. You can actually put quite a bit on this bad boy and obviously not have to worry about, you know, it maybe breaking or having to replace anything like that. And then simply to close it, hit that same button that you did to open it, and there you go. Your TRD Pro is back and closed, and you can, you know, take all the stuff that you had in the bed and go inside or put it in the garage. I like the fact that TRD Pro is written in massive letters on your rear, you know, tailgate here. However, I don't like the fact that it color matches the color that you get your vehicle in. I wish that they would offer this, that if you got the white version, this would be, you know, just like the new 4Runners, this, you know, integrated gloss black bold letters that actually come out from the actual paint and the panel of the actual vehicle to really show a different depth of, you know, showing other people what you're in when you're currently driving on the road. Other than that though, they've done a great job, an absolute phenomenal job. I think that this now is a TRD Pro that I see the value in, that I would actually want to buy this vehicle. I didn't think the old generation really gave me that. There was really nothing on the inside or outside that I was really, you know, super in favor for. So you guys let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. All right, now jumping into the TRD Pro Tacoma, I'm gonna touch on something that I typically don't really chat a whole lot about in my videos, and that's gonna be the seats. Now, obviously I mentioned, you know, the seats are leather, you know, they're soft tex, you know, so on and so forth. You know, they're cool, they're heated, you know, the list can go on and on. However, just talking comfortability wise, these seats have to be one of our most comfortable seats we have ever put in one of our vehicles. And I've mentioned this in a few other vehicles that we've been in. I would say the closest thing to this would actually be the Grand Highlander Hybrid Max or the Platinum. I think those seats definitely hug you very well. However, just the actual look and the feel of these seats, I feel so comfortable sitting in them. Now, the seats is a really, really cool talking point. These come with isodynamic performance seats. So on the back of these carbon back, the exposed carbon back seats, you can actually adjust how stiff, you want your seat to feel. So it could kind of be a bit more floaty, so you're not feeling as many bumps as a typical setting. You could obviously make it very stiff, so obviously you're feeling a lot more of the road or the terrain that you're on. I think that is a really, really cool feature. And to be honest, when I originally saw this vehicle, a video that someone posted on Instagram, I saw the backs of these seats and I was like, there's no way. There's no way that Toyota put that in, a manufactured vehicle that's not an add-on or, a very, very limited special edition. Obviously, getting a TRD Pro is maybe not the easiest, but this is just how they come. So I think that was a very cool surprise, at least that I had when I actually saw one of these in person. Now, sitting in one of these, they've done a very good job just to lay this out like a typical Tacoma. I like the fact that you see a lot of the differences between TRD Pro and just the regular stuff that you would get in a more fully loaded, Tacoma. I love the fact that this like little exposed, carbon looking material is on your dash here. It's got Toyota embroidered on, in front of your passenger, which I love. There's black on top, a little red underneath to kind of show you that, the TRD Pro is always that like black and red or like the black and orange. So I like how they've kind of continued that theme, especially with all the TRD on the inside of this. Just like your steering wheel, it's got that, it's kind of funny, that little center racing stripe to let you know exactly, if your lines are actually straight with obviously the tires on the road. You've got your TRD shift knob, your start button, the floor mats, the TRD embroidered in your actual seats. I think what they've done to really, exaggerate the fact that you're, not in a typical Tacoma, they've done a pretty cool job. Pair that up with obviously all the new screens and new safety sense features, JBL sound system, with one of my new favorite features that we can offer on any one of our vehicles, which is our pop-up JBL sound system. I think that what they have done to really cater this vehicle for, an everyday use or just someone who wants something different on today's market, Toyota has done a really, really good job. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. I'm gonna jump into the back seats because I've always said this, getting into a TRD Pro, Toyota claims that the new Tacomas are 3% bigger than the prior generation, which if you're gonna ask me, that is very minimal and it's not something why I would buy one of these. Obviously, I wanna love the look, love the drive, love the features, but I'm interested to see what these rear seats will do for any of your rear passengers. So give me 1 second and I'll be right back. All right, this will be interesting. Let's try and get into the back of this new TRD Pro. Now, I had to move the seat up twice just in order to actually fit back here. Now, I will tell you this, being someone who is a bit taller, my headroom is nothing great. I would not be buying this truck if I'm ever gonna be loading this up with 4 people or 5 people, because that would be a very, very adventurous way to go about having this vehicle. If you had smaller kids, maybe that's more manageable for your everyday life. However, looking at these back seats, I love the look of them. There's nothing about this that seems normal in Toyota's world. This is something that we typically never offer on one of our vehicles, and it is pretty cool that this is just the way this vehicle comes from the factory. I think, just the looks of it alone is a buying feature for me. I don't know what that is, but I think it's just so cool that they've added this onto this truck. However, practicality-wise, yeah, I'm not that comfortable. I know what their idea behind this was, to add this little, insert, which is actually pretty soft on the back of it too, just in case your legs can fit there. But unfortunately, there's really no way for me to sit comfortably back here. I'm kind of right on the edge of my headroom. I'm basically on the edge of my, leg room as well. And anyone that's driving this truck in front of me would need to be a bit smaller because I need this seat as far up as I can go. So to be honest, do I agree with Toyota that the space has increased 3%? Probably not. They may have me on, cubic feet if you want to measure it like that. But obviously, people typically don't measure stuff in cubic feet. You typically have to go in to see it. And I would not be able to tell the difference between 220 versus 225 cubic feet. So if you're one of those people, I'm jealous because at least for me, I can't tell a huge difference. And if I was in the market to get one of these, this would simply be for me and the person that I'm with, because I don't think, any rear passengers would be that comfortable back here. I also didn't touch upon the fact that this is featured with black interior. You can get this with the red interior. I've seen it once at the auto show. I think it looked pretty cool, but it's a very bright red. If you know our Camry red, it's basically the exact same thing. So the cockpit red, which was obviously then shared on the old generation Tacoma, and the TRD Pro version of the Tundra, that was a pretty cool feature. And obviously typical that most vehicles come with either, a black or a tan interior these days, but significantly more on the black side. I like that you have that customization to go red if you wanted to. However, I like the way this is spec'd. If I'm getting a TRD Pro Tacoma, this is my dream spec sitting in front of me. You guys can let me know down below in the comments. So let's wrap things up talking about some numbers on the TRD Pro Tacoma. Now, one of these bad boys, even though it's powered by a 4-cylinder, fuel efficiency is not going to be the greatest. Toyota's going to say this will average a combined 10.3 liters combined between city and highway driving, which I guess isn't terrible in the pickup, grand scheme of things. However, for the smaller pickup side, this being a hybrid and only a 4-cylinder, maybe it's not the greatest between other manufacturers on the market. And then we talk about price. One of these bad boys will be coming in at a starting MSRP $78,674. And it's kind of funny what Toyota's been doing with different MSRPs, because typically it would be $78,500 or $78,800. It's really interesting how they're adding these, weird dollar amounts towards the end of their numbers. I don't really know why they're doing that, but it definitely makes it interesting and fun for me to actually remember every single one of these MSRPs that I am shooting. Now, if you guys are in the market for TRD Pro Tacoma, let me know. Also, let me know if you want one / if you have one. I'm always wanting to know what customers are looking for, if they've driven it, if they think it's worth it, or if they'll get that prior generation. So leave a comment down below. I'm gonna be going through some of these in our future videos. Again, my name is Aiden with Upper James Toyota. If you did like this video, please do not forget to hit like and subscribe so you don't miss any more of our future Toyota related content, and I'll check you guys out in the next video.